All right, so in 2016, I did a study at Utah Valley University. I'm going to share with you some of those results. This is an unpublished study. We haven't yet decided if we're going to publish it or redo it. So we're kind of working on that. One thing I want to point out to you here is that the mean age, meaning if we take everybody and figure out what's the middle age kind of, we're at just over 37. So that is Gen X. That is my generation. These people are roughly about 30 to 40 years old right now. So this, I love, Kristen Jensen actually, I shared some of these results with her and she said something very eloquent. So I'm going to say it in her words. We're looking at old data. This is like looking at data from the stars. It's been traveling for a few years. This is what happened in my generation. And I have kids who are millennials. So this was a while ago. Way back when we were growing up in Gen Z, look here at the last line. Let's see, is this one the perfect? See, we've got here how often did it involve another child? And almost half of our males and females said, when I was first exposed to pornography, there was another kid there, okay? And then we come here, and how did the first exposure occur? I gave them 4 options, other being one of the options, but those who selected other actually fit right into one of these categories. Most of the time, so 61% of our girls, 50% of our boys, half of the time it was an accident. They just came across it. Another 32% of our girls and 40% of our boys, they were exposed to pornography by someone else. It was very, very rare back in our generation to go looking for pornography. I am not sure that that has changed a whole lot. I mean, pornography is more accessible right now, but we're looking at, this is before it was on smartphones, before people were marketing to our kids, before people were marketing to teens, before the porn industry was like, hey, every kid in America's got a smartphone. Let me see how I can send them some porn. So this was a long time ago. This had to happen. We had to find daddy's Playboy in the bedroom. I actually ran across it babysitting. My first exposure to pornography was when I was about 13 years old. I was babysitting and there was porn all over this house. And I wasn't into watching the videos. I knew there were videos. They said, don't watch any videos that aren't marked. I'm like, okay. I put the math together, figured out what that meant. Wasn't interested, but I found these little like Reader's Digest sizes they were just erotic stories, sexual encounter stories. That was my first exposure to porn. Ran across it babysitting and I was like, ooh, what's this? Liked it. I would actually babysit for free. I'd call them up and be like, hey, do you guys need a babysitter this weekend? Oh no, I won't charge you. That's okay. Because I wanted my porn, right? 13 years old, this was 1990 and 1991, okay? So people say, oh, girls being attracted to porn, it's a new thing. No, it's not. It happened for me 20 years ago, okay? Long time ago. That's almost 30 years ago. I'm 41. That's almost 30 years ago, you guys. Now I'm even shocked. How did that happen? 30 years ago, I was looking at porn. Granted, I was reading stories. That's a long time ago. So when people say this is a new thing for girls, no, it's not. We're just not addressing it. That's what's a thing. So here, this was actually an idea I got from Kristen and her team to look at how long did it take kids once they got exposed to pornography, mind you, we're talking about the 90s here, to go looking for more. And so usage latency over here, our girls are in the baby pink, our boys are in the red. Girls went looking for pornography. It took them, I wish I'd quit pushing that button. So here we've got like less than 6 months. Look how many boys are going back and looking within less than 6 months. But you know when girls are going back? So our mean age of exposure was actually 9.5 to 10 years old in this study, okay? 9.5 to 10 years old. And so if our girls are going back more than 3 years later, they're going back at puberty. Okay, so for my generation, we went back about puberty for the girls. If we were exposed earlier, our mean age of exposure being, let's just even say 10, we're going back at 13. But boys, they're going back as quick as they can almost. okay? And then over here, when did they tell? When did we talk about it? We found, so in between here, we had quite a few. I think we had 7 different age groups. Can't remember for sure. If they didn't tell on the first day, they didn't tell until they were adults. It was either they told the same day they were exposed to porn, or they didn't tell until they were adults. And for women, they were more than 2 times as likely, more than twice as likely to still not have talked about it. Which means the first time they talked about this is when they took my survey. Which is kind of sad. So one of the reasons I did this research, one of the reasons that I wanted to come and share this research with you is because something we don't always talk about is the increased risk young girls are at for exploitation when they use pornography. So in my story, I learned how to seduce men reading Playboy Sexual Encounters. I got very good at it. I learned how to dress. I learned how to talk watching anime between 14 and 17. So we've got this big anime culture now, and it freaks me out. As someone who in 1992, 1993, 1995 was watching anime and learning how to get a boyfriend, have multiple boyfriends at the same time, learning how to act, learning how to be a young woman in the 1990s, watching anime. What are our girls doing now? Anime is huge. Anybody not know what anime is? Yeah. All anime is sexualized. All of it. The purpose of anime is to increase sexuality. Anime, all of it is sexualized. Don't worry though. You're here, there's still something you can do. And you can talk to her and you can have a conversation. But you see why I'm so upset at this anime thing and why we're not talking about girls and porn and girls and anime? Because I'll tell you what, I never would have watched a porn. I knew where they were. I had access to porn. I knew. I just need to find some videos that don't have a label and I can watch some porn, right? I'm just gonna be like, hey, you want me to babysit for you for free? I'll totally stay overnight, right? Yes. I didn't want that, but anime, ooh, that was juicy. There was the sexual tension, there was the flirting, there was the just messing around, right? So alluring to girls. Okay, I'm actually not going to tell these stories because I have a surprise for you guys later. But I want you to be really aware that girls are at increased risk for exploitation. I was self-exploiting. I'll tell you what, I started watching anime, you know what happened? My shorts got way shorter. My tank tops, they got thinner straps. They got a little more see-through. Because I wanted the attention those girls in the anime were getting. I wanted that power, that sexual power of, hey, look at me. I wanted the attention from boys and men. That was cool. You know what's really cool when you're a teenage girl? Having a super cute guy at school check you out when you walked by. Very cool. It's not very cool. I was encouraging men, young men, to lust after me. I was encouraging them to see me as an object, but I didn't know I was doing that. I had no idea. I had no idea anime was teaching me to exploit myself. Teaching me to cheapen myself. I didn't know. At 17, I figured it out. I stopped watching anime. That was hard. That was really hard. Stopped watching anime, stopped reading the literature. That was harder. Because then I didn't have my stories. But you know what? I had so much in my head. I was like, that's all right, I got it up here. And I turned to fantasy, and everything kind of became about fantasy. Okay. So prevention. So I want to talk about prevention for a minute. We worry about our girls, we worry about our boys, we worry about our young men and our young women, and that's natural and that's good. We don't need to be paralyzed though, because there is so much we can do. Starting with positive open communication. So we're at the dinner table this one time, and we were having a friend over, and one of my kids, I wish I could remember what exactly he brought up. Oh, transsexualism. I have a friend who's trans. And I had brought up this friend and said, oh yeah, so I was hanging out with Lexa today and this happened and it was so funny. My friend goes, my son asked me a question about Lexa because my son is very observant. And I said, well, Lexa is what's called trans. So Lexa's my friend. Lexa was born one way, one gender, one sex, biological sex, and feels that that's not their true identity. And so while I don't understand that, I haven't lived that, Lexa's still a person and I really care about them. And they're my friend. And one of my kids, and then my other kid goes, what's trans? And then my other kid who has a girlfriend there, they don't talk about that. And I'm like, don't talk about it. Do you know what trans means? I think so. Okay. And at this point you have to decide, is it a good idea or a bad idea? I tell someone else's kid what all the LGBT acronyms mean, right? I teach psychology of gender. This crap just rolls out of my mouth, right? My kids is too. They know the difference between transsexual, transvestite, and, what's the third one?
Queer?
No, we don't use that word. No, I'm just kidding. No, they do. No, that's an okay word. Anyway, there's 3 of them, and I can't remember what they are right now, probably because I'm a little bit nervous. So the important thing is to just have positive, open communication. My son knew he could ask a question that might be, he was a little tentative, but he knew he could ask me a question, and I'd tell him what was up. And then he's like, okay, but what does that word mean? I don't know what that means. You said that, but what does that mean? And so I explained it to him, right? We didn't go into detail really because there was someone else's kid at the table. I don't have a right to have that conversation with someone else's kid. Education is really important. We need to normalize the curiosity of our kids. So my son came to me, Mom, I did something really, really bad. I'm like, you killed somebody? Why would you do that? He's like, no, I didn't. Oh, okay, then we're fine. What'd you do? And he tells me, I looked up something. And I'm like, oh, I've been waiting for this. Okay, what'd you look up? And he tells me what he saw. And this kid is traumatized. He's crying. He's really upset. And I'm like, sweetheart, your sexuality is working. This is good. You're supposed to be drawn to pornography. Pornography is created to pull you in. So all this means is you're normal. Now what we need to do, because you have that normal, healthy sexual curiosity, which is cool, high five. He high-fives me. Curiosity about sex is not bad, sweetheart. So tell me what questions you have. Let's talk about it. What are your questions about sex? What questions do you have now that you saw that? And he's like, I never want to do that. And I was like, you're 11. This is good. I said, you might change your mind at some point, but no one's going to force you. And if anyone does, you tell me, and I'll beat them up for you. Oops, I went forward. So just having a normalize it. Of course our kids are going looking for porn. Of course they're looking for this stuff, okay? They know it's out there. It's like back in my day when we were talking about don't do drugs, and I'm like, what's drugs, right? It's normal. They hear the word, they're going to be curious what it means. That doesn't make them naughty or bad. It makes them normal. So what my son and I talked about is how sex and what he saw was degrading. It was not what real love looks like in marriage. He goes, you and Dad do that? I said, we don't do what you saw. No, because that's not love. Dad and I love each other very much, and we are very respectful and kind to each other all the time. And you don't need to worry about that right now. It's clearly upsetting you. So let's not worry about that right now. This is not something you have to think about or worry about right now. So breathe. We okay? Let's go get some froyo and keep talking about this, okay? So normal for them to go looking. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about mediating the exposure. I've mentioned curiosity before. Curiosity is our best friend when it comes to helping our children recover, when it comes to helping our children get better, when it comes to figuring out why are our kids doing what they're doing. Parental curiosity, hey sweetie, what were you doing looking at that, okay? Therapeutic curiosity, if you feel they need therapy. We need a therapist who's curious. Okay, so why'd you go looking? Okay, great. Let's just make sure everything's okay. It's not a time to need to panic though. And giving your kids a white card. Our kids know at any point they can talk about exposures they've already had, that kind of thing. We're very careful in our home. My 11-year-old still got exposed a few years ago. So some challenges I really want to bring up about women who use pornography. We often become involved in pornography looking for love. We're looking for validation. We're looking for compassion. We're looking to feel better. So many of us are lonely. We've been exploited. We've been abused. There is a whole history of sexual abuse in my past that we haven't even touched on. Okay? A lot of the women I work with, all except one, I've worked with dozens of women in pornography addiction. One of them had never been abused. Okay? So it's important to realize as we're talking about women, we just recognize there's probably some sort of abuse history in there. And a lot of them, one woman she's just trying to make sense of what just happened to her, right? And then she keeps watching it over and she's replaying her trauma, trying to cope, and instead she's getting in a bigger hole. So being really sensitive to that, and a rape schedule. A rape schedule is what a woman does to prepare for when she is raped. Many women in America live with a rape schedule. We walk with our keys between our fingers, our finger on the mace, our cell phones with 911 already in there just in case. We walk fast to our cars. We stay in lit areas. Okay, rape schedule is real, and porn is only making that worse. And one last thing I want to mention, so spouses recovery is good, and I get that sending women into betrayal trauma groups, very good thing. I'm a big fan of betrayal trauma groups, right? But when you send a female addict into a room of traumatized women whose husbands are using porn and who have been abused and who are that distraught, you send a woman who uses porn in with a whole bunch of victims for her very crime, what do you think that's going to do to her mental state? I promise you it will not help her. And I've had people say, women addicts do not need to be unique. They're just like male addicts, and that is bullcrap. No, they're not. Male addicts are not usually hooked on porn after abuse. That's not how it happens for them. They're not exploited at the same levels of women. They're not as disempowered. So in the recovery program I've developed, we work a lot on empowerment and teaching them, you get to say no, you get to set boundaries, you get to say hell no. And you get to say that's not happening anymore. And these women look for themselves in porn. One big problem is the predation, what I've come to call the predation complex. I'm contributing to the further exploitation of women. I'm a horrible woman. And then her girl coach, she's like, I've betrayed all the women in the world and I can't stop. That is not something men face. And that has to be addressed in the female recovery paradigm.
So in our movement, in what we do, that's one of our passions, is that through pornography, after pornography, I guess I should say, that in the healing process, we learn that people are not objects, and that in the healing process, we understand how destructive pornography can be for us, for the people that we love, for the people that we know, for the people that we haven't even met. But that we really focus on empowerment, especially when it comes to females, because females, in our mind, have a very different experience of what pornography is. It is objectifying, it is dangerous, it is influencing those times when we park in lidded areas because we know that if we park back in the corner where it's dark but closer, it might be a little more dangerous.
So I just want to share with you, I've written a women's recovery book. If you want that, let me know. Let me get your email address. I would love to send it to you. And this is my Brie. She's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for being here and listening about women and pornography. It's time that women and their addictions are not a footnote anymore.